Good morning, friends. In this lecture, we study length contraction. So, we consider two coordinate system S and S dash with their axis coinciding at time t equal to 0. S dash is moving with uniform velocity v relative to frame S in the positive x direction. Right? So, this is the frame S dash and this frame is moving with velocity v relative to frame S. Now here we imagine a rod AB at rest related to S dash. So this rod AB is in the frame S dash and with respect to S dash, this rod is stationary or at rest position. Okay. Now here O and O dash are the origin of frame S and S dash. This origin or this O and O dash also called as the observer in frame S and S dash. Okay. Let x1 dash and x2 dash be the coordinates of the ends of the rod at any instant of time in S prime frame. Then write L0 equal to x2 dash minus x1 dash, equation number 1. So this is the length of the rod in frame S dash and it is denoted by L0 equal to x2 dash minus x1 dash, right? Since the rod is at rest in frame S dash. Similarly, let x1 and x2 be the coordinates of the ends of the rod at any instant of time in S frame. Then we write here L equal to x2 minus x1. This is equation 2nd. Which is the length of rod AB measured relative to the frame S. Right? So this is the length of rod AB which is measured relative to the frame S. According to Lorentz transformation, we write here x2 dash equal to x2 minus Vt upon root 1 minus V square upon C square. Okay. So here we have to write according to Lorentz transformation x2 dash equal to x2 minus Vt upon root 1 minus V square upon C square, equation number 3. Then next we write x1 dash equal to x1 minus Vt upon root 1 minus V square upon C square, equation number 4. Subtracting equation 4 from equation 3, we get x2 dash minus x1 dash equal to, here Vt get cancel, minus Vt and here is minus Vt. So there is a subtraction between these two, that means x2 dash minus x1 dash. So here we write x2 dash minus x1 dash equal to x2 minus x1 upon root 1 minus V square upon C square. Okay. But x2 dash minus x1 dash equal to L0 and x2 minus x1 equal to L. Therefore, above equation becomes L0 equal to L upon root 1 minus V square upon C square. Okay. So here we substitute x2 dash minus x1 dash equal to L0 and x2 minus x1 equal to L. So the equation is like this. Therefore we write here L equal to L0 into root 1 minus V square upon C square, equation number 5. From equation 5 we see that L is less than L0. Right? L is less than L0. Therefore, to the observer in frame S, it would appear that the length of rod has been contracted by the factor root 1 minus V square upon C square. The length of rod as measured in the frame of reference at rest with respect to observer is called proper length. Here L0 is the proper length of rod AB. As velocity of rod increases, its length decreases so that finally at v equal to c, it becomes equal to 0. Thus, the length of the object moving with velocity of light is equal to 0. The shortening or contraction in length of an object along its direction of motion is known as Lorentz-Fischerland contraction. There is no contraction in a direction perpendicular to the direction of motion. That means when object is moving in the direction of motion, then there is a contraction in its length or shortening in its length, and this is called as the Lorentz-Fischerland contraction. Okay. Then next we see proper time. Consider two frames of reference S and S dash with their axes coinciding at time t equal to 0. Now here we consider again two frames S and S dash having origin O and O dash, and at time t equal to 0 their axis or origin are coinciding with each other. Imagine that the frame S dash is moving with velocity v relative to the frame S in the positive x direction. Suppose two identical clocks are placed at their origin O and O dash. Now here we have to place two identical clocks at origin O and O dash. Suppose at any given point x dash in S dash frame, two events occur at times t1 dash and t2 dash as recorded by the clock in S dash frame. That means here two events are occurring at the time t1 dash and t2 dash, and these are recorded the clock which is placed in the frame S dash. Let t1 and t2 be the times recorded by the clock in S frame for the same two events. Then the time interval between two events recorded by the clock in S dash frame will be t dash equal to t2 dash minus t1 dash. Right? Equation number 1. Similarly, for frame S we have t equal to t2 minus t1. Equation number 2. From Lorentz inverse transformation equation, right here t1 equal to t1 dash plus x dash v upon c square total divided by root 1 minus v square upon c square. Right? Then we write for t2 equal to t2 dash plus x dash v upon c square total divided by root 1 minus v square upon c square. Equation number 4. Again we have to subtract equation 4 from equation 3. Then we write t2 minus t1 equal to, so t2 minus t1 equal to t2 dash minus t1 dash, because these two term, this term and this term get cancelled. Here we write t2 dash minus t1 dash upon root 1 minus v square upon c square. But t dash equal to t2 dash minus t1 dash and t equal to t2 minus t1 as already we have written. Therefore we write t equal to t dash upon root 1 minus v square upon c square. Equation 5. The quantity root 1 minus v square upon c square is always less than unity. Therefore, time interval between two events occurring at a given point in the moving frame S dash appear to be longer to the observer in the stationary frame S, that is t is greater than t dash. Okay, so we have written here t is greater than t dash, so there is t and this is t dash. Therefore, we say that a moving clock always appears to go slow. This is important. Now, I will again read this sentence. we say that a moving clock always appear to go slow. That means any clock which is in motion that always go slow. This apparent retardation of the clock is called time dilation. The time dilation means the time interval measured by a clock in a stationary frame is longer than that measured by the clock in a moving frame of reference. Okay? The time interval measured in the reference frame in which the clock is at rest t dash is called proper time, while time t is improper time. That means here t dash is the proper time and t is the improper time. Now here we have to remember this definition. That means what is time dilation, and we have to derive this total equation. What is proper time? And we have to prove this, right? Then next we see relativity of simultaneity. Let us consider two events takes place at same instant at x1 and x2. An observer in s dash, which is in the relative motion with respect to s, would measure these events at the instant. Right here, t1 dash equal to t1 minus x1v upon c square divided by root 1 minus v square upon c square. Similarly, for t2 dash we write here t2 minus x2 v upon c square total divided by root 1 minus v square upon c square. Okay. These two events are simultaneous in s. Hence, t1 equal to t2. The time difference between two events in s dash frame is t2 dash minus t1 dash equal to, from this equation we write here v in bracket x1 minus x2 upon c square upon root 1 minus v square upon c square, right? So here we have do the subtraction between these two equations, t2 dash minus t1 dash. So here this quantity gets cancelled, t1 t2 get cancelled. Sorry, here we write here t2 dash minus t1 dash equal to v in bracket x1 minus x2 c square, okay, upon root 1 minus v square upon c square. Now here you have written here these two events are simultaneous in s, hence t1 equal to t2. That means here this t1 and t2 are equal, so in this subtraction they get cancelled and remaining terms are like this. This is not 0. This indicates that two events at x1 and x2 which are simultaneous to the observer in s do not appear so to the observer in the frame s dash. Therefore, the concept of simultaneity has only a relative, not an absolute meaning. Okay. Then we see last point, twin paradox. Consider two exactly identical twin brothers. Let one of the twin go to a long space journey at a high speed in a rocket and the other stay behind on the earth. The clock in the moving rocket will appear to go slower than the clock on the surface of the earth, right? Therefore, when he returns back to the earth, he will find himself younger than the twin who stayed behind on the earth. So we understand this by taking example. Consider two twins A and B, each 20 years of age. Twin A remains at rest at the origin O and twin B takes a round trip space journey to a star with velocity v equal to 0.99 c relative to A. The star is 20 light years away from O, that means from Earth. We want to determine the age of A and B as B finishes his journey. According to A, the time taken by B in the round trip is T1 equal to 20 light years upon velocity, that is 0.99 c, and this is equal to 20 years into c, right, upon 0.99 c. Therefore right here T1 equal to 20.2 years. So this cc get cancelled and we write this 20 upon 0.99 c will get this 20.2 years. That means right here T1 equal to 20.2 years. Thus according to A, his own age as B completes the journey is 20 plus 20.2 is equal to 40.2 years. Right? This 20 is the original age, that means age of the A, also age of B. So this is the age. That means according to A, his own age as B completes the journey is, when B comes on the earth after journey, then age of A is 20 plus 20.2, this is equal to 40.2 years. According to B, the time of journey is given by T2 equal to 20 years into root 1 minus v square upon c square equal to 20 into root 1 minus 0.99 c bracket square. So this will get T2 equal to 2.8 years. Okay. Hence according to B, his own age after the journey is 20 plus 2.8 equal to 22.8 years. Right. So you see this 22.8 years and this 40.2 years. Then age of B is 22 years and age of A is 40, which is younger than between these two twins. So when B completes his journey, or after completing his journey, he will be seeing younger than the brother A, which is on the earth. Right? These two statements are different. This is twin paradox. Okay. So with this lecture I stop here. Have a good day.